Depending on the events of today, we may have to make more videos about the Vancouver Canucks. I don't write the rules, that's just how the cookie crumbles, I guess. But in this video, what I wanted to do was talk about the most expensive Vancouver Canucks player. A guy whose name you've probably already seen in the title, and whose face you've probably already seen in the thumbnail. Today we're talking about Elias Pettersson, Vancouver Canucks superstar, formerly, and a current cap casualty. $11.6 million a year for a guy who, at one point in his career, was a 100-point scorer in the National Hockey League. It's just, that was 3 years ago. And last season, he only had 51 points in 74 games, so Elias Pettersson obviously is not the same player that he once was. He doesn't have the same level of activation. He doesn't have the same shooting mentality that he once had. He plays tentatively. He plays more conservatively. He plays better defensively, but ultimately, he's expensive. And if he was scoring 100 points a year, then maybe $11.6 million would be okay, but he's getting half that, you know? Anyways, we have had multiple conversations throughout the course of the year, heck, the past 2 years, really, about the idea of an Elias Pettersson trade, whether or not this guy could get moved, whether or not it was him or Miller who would find themselves off the team in a trade capacity. Where is Elias Pettersson going to play next? Is he destined to be a Canuck for life and for the course of that contract, or is his future somewhere else? With that said, after the endless discussions we have had from various insiders and media about the status of Elias Pettersson trade talk, we have another name putting their ideas into the hat. And I wanted to refer to an article posted on NHLTradeRumors.me to give the latest on Elias Pettersson trade talk. Dave Lippman posted this yesterday. I'll leave a link in the description. An ex-Stanley Cup winning general manager says one team will take Elias Pettersson off the Canucks' hands. Now, like the title and the thumbnail, you probably already know who we're talking about. We are diving into what Brian Burke spoke about on Sirius XM NHL Network Radio earlier yesterday. Yeah, that's right. Everybody's favorite lawyer turned general manager, who once upon a time held the top picks in the 1999 draft and inevitably used them to select Henrik and Daniel Sedin, a guy who set the Vancouver Canucks up for decades of prosperity and lifetimes of stories. Henrik and Daniel Sedin were amazing, and Brian Burke was the guy who pulled it off to bring them to Vancouver. This is what he ended up speaking about on NHL Network Radio, providing an outspoken explanation of why he feels Pettersson will get traded. I would be leery of trading for Elias Pettersson, but I do think someone's going to take him. There's 32 teams, and someone makes a mistake every day in our league. Someone is going to bite on Elias Pettersson, and that's because he's had a couple of great years. He's supposedly a good kid. He works hard. No issues with him character-wise, but he just goes to sleep as a player. Someone will give him a chance, but I wouldn't. No, Berkey, never change. Please do us all a favor and just be yourself 100% of the time, because I love the way Brian Burke is not afraid to be unabashed and just totally honest about how he's assessing players and how he feels about certain situations. I always said that I really enjoyed listening to Brian Burke on the Hockey Night in Canada Sportsnet broadcasts. I guess he's doing other stuff for NHL Network nowadays since he's on their radio programming, but hey, this is a pretty interesting take. He's saying that somebody will take Elias Pettersson, somebody will trade for Elias Pettersson because mistakes happen all the time in the NHL. You know, the modern day Gen Z hockey fan inside of me instinctually went, well, Brian Burke is old, therefore he's an old school guy who wants big, tough Canadian dudes, and he doesn't want Swedish players that play soft and rely on their skill, and yada yada yada. And then my brain was like, wait a minute, that's exactly the kind of player profile he drafted at 2nd and 3rd overall in 1999. The only difference was there was never a doubt when the Sedins got their big contracts and when they became 100-point scorers, it's never like, oh, well, they fell off. No, they just got older. Elias Pettersson's like, oh, he totally fell off. This is a guy who was playing through injuries and playing through bullying and playing through all these things, but at the end of the day, he's making so much money, and he's not the same player that he was when he was playing up to that dollar amounts caliber. The article on NHLTradeRumors.me says that Pettersson, the 5th overall pick in 2017, broke out big time back in 22-23 with a 102-point year, which was then followed up by an 89-point season in 23-24. And before that season came to an end, the Canucks signed him to an 8-year, $92.8 million contract. He's never been the same since. In fact, going into the final 20 games of that season, he was on a 99-point pace, but he slowed down after signing the deal to finish at 89. Might I remind you, there was a period at the end of October, start of November of the 23-24 year where Pettersson was tied with Miller and Hughes in points for 1st overall in the league. That was one of the craziest things that we had seen in a Canucks season over the past few years. Having 3 guys at the top of the entire gosh darn league, everything was going well, the guys were scoring, the pucks were going in, the Canucks were winning, and Pettersson and Miller and Hughes all led the league in individual scoring. It was a 3-way tie between 3 guys on the same team. Miller ended up with 100-plus points that year. Pettersson, if he just kept pace, he would have been right there with him. But it was heavily speculated that around the January-February mark of 2024 is when Pettersson started to get hurt, and he didn't take time off. He was just kind of there, and, you know, he signed the contract, and everybody was like, oh, well, it's contract issues. Oh, he's feeling the pressure because of the contract. And then he signed the contract, and he still played poorly. In the playoffs in 2024, Pettersson didn't really score all too much. All of the big goals and the big moments were being accomplished by guys like Brock Besser and Elias Lindholm and Dakota Joshua and Garland, and you can't forget about JT Miller in that Game 5 against the Oilers. Lots of big moments. Pettersson didn't really have any of them. And so, it's been a few years. Pettersson has matured as an individual. We know that he is in a different stage of his life now than he was 2, 3, 4 seasons ago when he was scoring all these points. We all understand he seems to be a good dude. Maybe not the biggest leader, maybe not captain material, quote-unquote, but just a good guy to have around. He doesn't scuffle. He doesn't ruffle feathers. He just does what he needs to do, and he's a good dude. But as a player, he's overpaid. And if the Vancouver Canucks want to maximize their rebuild, if they have an offer, if they have a team that's willing to bite and shell out any sort of future building value, whether that's a first-round pick or a prospect or 2, what have you, the Vancouver Canucks have got to take it on. I mean, you can look at the JT Miller trade and say that was kind of disappointing. Well, guess what? JT Miller's doing pretty poorly in New York now. It was an addition by subtraction type of thing. Elias Pettersson, you can debate that maybe there's a similar sentiment there too. We also brought up this talking point on the channel in prior videos, but if Caleb Malhotra comes to Vancouver, what, you're going to have Braden Coots, Malhotra, Marco Rossi, and Pettersson as your 1, 2, 3, 4? I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work. Pettersson played as a right wing in Sweden, but you're not going to convert him to that in the NHL. You got to get one of these guys off the team. Anyways, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. We got more to talk about with Braden Coots, by the way. That will be another topic that we explore here on this channel today. For now, though, let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Brian Burke's Elias Pettersson update that somebody will trade for this guy? Because mistakes happen every day in the National Hockey League. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.